Hello Organauts and welcome in. It's party time because Off the Rails turns 2 years old today. As such, I'll be honest, this isn't going to be your usual episode, but the good news is we can jump straight into the main part of today's show. I don't know if we did something similar last year, but it occurs to me that today also happens to be Star Wars Day, so I figured we could talk about Super Monkey Ball. Oh wait, I did that joke last time. Sorry about that. Star Wars is one of the most famous movie franchises of all time, but did you know that they have video games as well? If you didn't, I'll happily fill you in on some of them. Bear in mind, no, that's not a health complaint. This is not a rundown of every Star Wars game ever made. This is some of the Star Wars games that I've played, and my impression of them. Starting with one that I only played for the first time in the last year. I'm sure I put a video up on YouTube, but please feel free to fact check me in the comments when I played Star Wars Racer. This sits you in the cockpit of a pod racer, very much like the one Anakin Skywalker piloted in the movie Episode 1 The Phantom Menace. It's a little bit like a kart racer, only I don't recall weapon pickups along the way. The focus is much more on the actual racing and avoiding taking damage from collisions with the other racers or indeed the racecourse terrain, because it is possible not to make it to the finish line. So what's my verdict on it then? Honestly, I really loved it. It really does pack the thrill of the pod racing scene from the first of the prequel movies. It's high-octane, fast-paced, and yet handles really well as well. It's what you'd really expect from a game tying into such a famous and beloved film series. But Star Wars Racer focuses on a very specific element that features in just one of the movies. It doesn't really look at the actual wars that are being fought across the galaxy. Another game that I was new to in the last 12 months was Rogue Leader on the Nintendo GameCube. This game puts you back in the cockpit, but this time you'll be flying fighters and bombers. You'll defend strategic targets from enemy craft while hunting them and even targeting weaknesses in the opposition's defences. I have to say, this is another really fun title. I really enjoyed piloting around, and the combat felt really responsive and rewarding. The targeting was smooth and accurate, and the challenge felt pitched just right for me. It's certainly not a Soulsborne game, but every mission success does feel earned. What if you wanted to get out and have a walkabout though? Shall we talk about the Star Wars Battlefront games? I'll start with the first one that I played, which was SWB on the PlayStation 2. I've spoken about these games previously, so I will skip over them today, but what I will say is that it kicked off the series really strong. I loved this game as a kid, and to this day would love them to bring back Galactic Conquest, which allowed you to side with the Republic or the Separatists in the Clone Wars, or the Rebels or the Empire in the Galactic Civil War. Star Wars Battlefront 2 took things a step further with the introduction of space battles. The PS2 games were practically perfection. The more recent Star Wars Battlefront offerings, to me, felt massively disappointing on the other hand. Although visually stunning, the first of the new games was purely a series of online minigames. There was no campaign, no Galactic Conquest, and individual mission wins just felt totally unfulfilling. It was a real low point for me. And solely because it was under the Star Wars Battlefront name, I was no more impressed with Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the modern consoles. There was a campaign this time, but there was none of the magic of the original games, and they could have called it literally anything else. To me, it did nothing that games like The Force Unleashed or Jedi Survivor did. Great games in their own right, don't get me wrong, but these others had the good sense to recognise they ought to be marketed in their own right. They're not Battlefront games, and nor is Star Wars Battlefront 2. But I don't want to end things on such a low, especially on our birthday, so I'm going to talk about the LEGO Star Wars games, and I'll review the Skywalker saga as a whole here, covering episodes 1 to 6 all at once, because really, the same applies to all of them. The LEGO games faithfully retell a slightly abridged version of the films. It's great fun running around, smashing up all the environments, and relying on the strengths of different characters to solve various puzzles as you go. All this, coupled with the excellent humour characteristic of LEGO games, makes for what I can only describe as a splendid gaming experience. Guys, there are so many other Star Wars games I could have talked about today, including on the Atari, the NES, and of course, games like Knights of the Old Republic, but we can come back to all these in the future. Next year, perhaps? What I'd like to say now is thank you for listening this last 2 years. Please keep an eye out for my new podcast, Tales from the Consoleverse, starting tomorrow, with a lovely story about Spyro the Dragon. I'll be back with more Off the Rails in a couple of weeks' time, so until then, I just want to say happy birthday to us. And bye!